Lily was breathtaking in her wedding dress. The white lace fabric seemed to capture the sunlight streaming through the chapel windows. Every detail of that day had been planned with love and care, reflecting what appeared to be the final chapter of a story filled with twists and turns. She took a deep breath as she looked at herself in the mirror, trying to contain the flood of emotions coursing through her. The bouquet in her hands was made up of white and lilac flowers, chosen by Ethan, her fiancé. He always said that lilac represented the beginning of their love, something gentle yet full of promise to grow. Thinking of him made Lily smile. Ethan was more than she had ever dreamed of. Kind, protective, and completely in love with her. Despite all of this, a lingering shadow hung over her mind, reminding her that complete happiness still felt just out of reach. As the bridesmaids made the final adjustments to her dress, Lily gazed at her reflection. Her brown eyes were glistening, not just from joy, but from the memories of how her life had begun. For a fleeting moment, she wondered about her mother. Was she alive? Did she remember the little girl she had left behind? Deep down, Lily knew that even surrounded by love on this day, a part of her still bore the scars of her past. When the moment came to walk down the aisle, her heart felt like it might burst out of her chest. The music began, and she held the arm of a close friend who would accompany her to the altar. As she walked, Lily saw the emotional and admiring gazes of her guests. But most importantly, there was Ethan, standing at the end of the aisle, his eyes fixed on her, radiating the love he felt. He was the gift that destiny had given her after so many years of pain and perseverance. Lily was only 4 years old when her mother left her at the entrance of St. Mary's Orphanage in Chicago. It was a chilly autumn morning, and the wind seemed to carry the dry leaves as if it knew a farewell was coming. Her mother, a young and visibly weary woman, held Lily's tiny hand one last time before kneeling down to her level. "I'll come back for you," she promised, tears streaming down her face and her voice breaking. The little girl, confused, believed those words, clutching her teddy bear tightly as a shield against the unknown. The heavy doors opened, and one of the caregivers, a tall woman with a warm yet sorrowful expression, welcomed Lily with a soft smile. Her mother kissed her quickly on the forehead and disappeared down the street before anyone could stop her. Lily didn't cry immediately. She stood in the doorway, clutching her bear tightly, waiting for her mother to return. But as minutes turned into hours, the harsh truth began to weigh on her small, innocent heart. That first day at the orphanage was silent. Lily didn't interact with the other children or respond to the caregivers. The place, while clean and organized, felt strange and cold. The brightly colored walls adorned with children's drawings couldn't mask the echo of voices that filled the halls, each one carrying its own story of abandonment or loss. At night, Lily was placed in a shared dormitory. The beds, arranged in impeccable rows, seemed far too large for children so small. She chose a corner, clutching her teddy bear tightly to her chest as she tried to hold back her tears. In that moment, she began to realize that her mother wasn't coming back anytime soon. Days turned into weeks, and the lack of any news from her mother solidified the feeling of abandonment. Lily learned to adapt to the orphanage's routine, but something inside her remained untouched. A childlike hope that one day her mother would appear at the door, ready to take her home. Life at the orphanage was filled with rules and activities, but for Lily, the days were gray and lonely until the moment she met Emily. Emily arrived at St. Mary's at the age of 7, a skinny girl with messy blonde hair and sparkling eyes that always seemed to be searching for something fun to do. Unlike Lily, who maintained a reserved demeanor, Emily radiated energy and curiosity, turning every corner of the orphanage into a stage for adventure. Emily approached Lily at an unexpected moment. They were in arts and crafts class, and Lily, sitting in a corner of the room, was attempting to build something with popsicle sticks, though with little enthusiasm. Emily, having already finished her project, came up to her with a mischievous grin and placed a makeshift figurine on Lily's desk. "This is you," she said, pointing to the clumsy little figure. "But I think your smile is way prettier than this." Lily couldn't help but let out a shy laugh. From that day on, the two became inseparable. Emily seemed to know exactly how to break down Lily's emotional walls, bringing light into her dark days. They created their own little world within the orphanage, sharing secrets late at night, planning fanciful stories about their futures, and playing in the gardens as though they were real sisters. Despite the joy they shared, there were moments when Emily's own sadness slipped through. She had lost her mother to illness when she was very young and had no idea who her father was. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, Lily would hear Emily softly sobbing in her bed. Without saying a word, she would climb into Emily's bed and sit beside her, holding her hand until the tears stopped. Together, Emily and Lily built a world of their own within the orphanage, where love and friendship filled the void left by abandonment. Their bond was so deep that both believed they would always be together, no matter what. They even made a pact. One day, when they left the orphanage, they would buy a big house and live together, creating the family they had never had. Emily was the beating heart of Lily's small world, and together they faced each day at the orphanage as an unbeatable duo. It was hard to imagine life without her friend, but that reality was cruelly forced upon Lily in a sudden and devastating way. One day, the orphanage organized a special outdoor activity, a trip to a nearby forest. The group was excited as the caregivers gave safety instructions and handed out snacks. Emily and Lily were thrilled, eagerly planning games and exploring every corner of the forest. The setting was entirely different, full of tall trees and winding trails that seemed to lead to other worlds. After the picnic, the children suggested playing hide and seek. Emily, always the most adventurous, picked the perfect spot to hide, laughing as she disappeared among the trees. Lily knew her friend was excellent at this game, but something about that afternoon felt different. Minutes passed, and one of the caregivers began calling for the children. One by one, the kids emerged from their hiding spots, laughing and returning to the meeting point. All except Emily. First, no one was worried. Emily loved playing tricks, so everyone assumed she was just extending the game. But as shouts of "Emily" echoed through the forest without a response, the atmosphere shifted. The caregivers quickly organized a meticulous search, calling out for her while keeping the other children close for safety. Lily, feeling panic rising within her, begged to help, but she was stopped. Time seemed to crawl, and the forest, which had felt so vibrant and welcoming earlier, became a maze of fear and uncertainty. Finally, the caregivers decided to call the police. A thorough search was launched, involving tracking dogs and volunteers from the community. Despite everyone's efforts, there was no trace of Emily. The days that followed were a blur of sadness and unanswered questions. Lily spent hours staring out of the dormitory window, hoping Emily would reappear with a laugh, saying it had all been a prank. But that never happened. Emily's absence left an unbearable void in Lily's life. She lost not only her best friend, but also her sense of safety and hope. The nights grew even longer, and loneliness became a constant weight. Even years later, the memory of Emily lingered, like an open wound that never fully healed. The forest, so eagerly anticipated by the children of St. Mary's Orphanage, had seemed like a magical world full of promises of adventure. The morning had started with laughter and excitement, and the little caravan of caregivers and children felt like an extension of the stories Emily and Lily loved to imagine. The air was filled with the scent of damp earth and fresh leaves as they walked along the trails, enchanted by the scenery around them. When they reached the main clearing, the caregivers spread checkered blankets on the ground and unpacked baskets of food. To Lily, it felt like the perfect day, something she would treasure as a precious memory. Emily was especially lively, her eyes sparkling as she joked and played with the other children. After the meal, she insisted they play hide and seek. "The forest is the perfect place for this," she exclaimed, pulling Lily by the hand with a mischievous grin. The game began with laughter and hurried footsteps. Emily, always full of ideas, decided to hide far away among the densest trees. Lily watched her friend disappear among the tall trunks, waving before vanishing. "No one's going to find me," Emily shouted, her voice echoing with a mix of challenge and fun. Lily laughed and chose a closer hiding spot, still believing it was just another game. Minutes passed, and voices began to emerge from different corners of the forest. The children were found one by one, returning to the clearing with laughter or complaints about wanting another turn to hide. When everyone had finally gathered, they realized Emily was missing. The lead caregiver called her name first casually, then more firmly. "Emily, it's time to come back," she urged, but the forest responded only with the rustling of leaves in the wind. Lily, feeling uneasy, tried to explain that Emily was very good at hiding and might just be waiting a little longer. However, the caregiver's expression quickly shifted to one of concern. The search began, starting with the areas closest to the clearing and then expanding to the more distant trails. Desperate, Lily ran to the spot where she had last seen Emily, but there was nothing, only silence and the shadows of the trees. The afternoon stretched on, and the sun began to set. The police were called, and the forest, once a place of wonder, turned into a maze of darkness and fear. Despite the authorities' efforts, Emily was not found. The clearing became deserted, marked only by the heavy silence and the void she had left behind. For Lily, that outing was no longer a happy memory, but the day her world was irrevocably shattered. The return to St. Mary's Orphanage was silent. Emily's absence loomed like a shadow over everyone, but for Lily, it was as though the world had lost all its color. The days following Emily's disappearance were filled with police investigations and relentless questioning. While the caregivers tried to maintain the children's routine, the atmosphere had irreversibly changed. Lily didn't speak to anyone. Her expression, once brightened by her friendship with Emily, had become blank. In the dining hall, she barely touched her food. During activities, she sat in a corner, clutching the teddy bear that had once brought her comfort during her early days at the orphanage. Now, however, even the small toy couldn't ease the overwhelming sense of emptiness. At night, the silence in the dormitory was unbearable. Lily tossed and turned in her bed, remembering the whispered conversations she and Emily used to share. Every corner of the room seemed to echo the laughter and promises they had made together. But now, all of that felt distant, like a dream that had slipped through her fingers. The caregivers tried to help, offering kind words and encouragement for her to interact with the other children. But Lily only withdrew further. She spent hours in the orphanage library, lost in books that transported her to other worlds. Worlds where people didn't disappear and friendships lasted forever. Reading became her refuge, a way to escape a reality that felt unbearably cruel. Time, which was supposed to heal, seemed only to solidify the pain. Months passed, but Emily's absence remained a constant presence in Lily's life. She carried a weight that no one could lift, a mixture of longing, guilt, and an unrelenting question. What if I had done something differently? Would she still be here? Gradually, Lily developed a sort of emotional armor. She stopped crying, stopped waiting. She retreated into her own world, where solitude felt safer than any emotional connection. To the other children, she appeared distant, untouchable. She didn't mind. To Lily, trusting someone meant opening herself up to loss, and that was something she never wanted to experience again. Lily's 18th birthday arrived like a quiet whisper. No party, no balloons, no cake. For her, the day was not a celebration but a reminder that her time at the orphanage had come to an end. According to St. Mary's rules, once a young person turned 18, they had to leave the shelter and face the world on their own. That morning, one of the older caregivers, Mrs. Harriet, came to Lily's room with a small package in her hands. "A gift for the next chapter of your life," she said with a wistful smile. Inside the package was a simple necklace with a star-shaped pendant. "You've always been strong, Lily. Don't forget that you can shine, even on the darkest days." Lily thanked her with a faint smile, but inside, she felt a mix of fear and emptiness. Lily was taken to a small apartment provided by the government. The space was modest, with white walls and simple furniture, but to her, it felt frighteningly vast. Loneliness echoed through every corner, a stark reminder of what she had endured before. Still, she knew she had to adapt. An assigned social worker, Mrs. Meredith, was tasked with helping Lily transition to independence. Meredith was practical and efficient, quickly securing Lily a job as a receptionist at a hotel in the city center. "It's a good opportunity for you to start. And with your language skills, I'm sure you'll do great." Lily spoke English, Spanish, and French, a reflection of the years she had spent immersing herself in books and studies. On her first day at the hotel, Lily felt the weight of expectations and the nervousness of stepping into an entirely new environment. The elegant uniform was a stark contrast to the simplicity of her life up to that point. The first few months were challenging, but gradually, Lily began to adjust. The work kept her busy, and interacting with colleagues and guests slowly helped her build a confidence she didn't realize she had. Even so, the nights remained difficult. In the silence of her apartment, thoughts of Emily and the lingering sense of abandonment often haunted her. Yet, Lily discovered something within herself, a quiet determination to move forward, even when the past seemed to pull her back. Working at the hotel marked the beginning of a new chapter in Lily's life, one she had never imagined possible. Though initially uncertain, she grew more confident with each passing day. Every interaction with a guest was a small victory, a step toward becoming a stronger version of herself. Her coworkers were the first to notice the changes in Lily. Though she remained reserved, her natural kindness and grace made her stand out. Over time, she began to open up a little more, accepting invitations to lunches or engaging in small conversations during breaks. There was something magnetic about her presence, a quiet serenity that drew people in and made them want to know her better. Lily also began to take better care of herself. Inspired by the elegant women she saw at the hotel, she started wearing light makeup and clothes that highlighted her natural beauty. Though she wasn't particularly vain, she realized that feeling beautiful helped build her self-esteem. Her transformation wasn't just external. Inside, she felt a newfound glow, as if, for the first time, she had control over the direction of her life. One of the most significant changes was her relationship with her past. While the memories of Emily and her childhood at the orphanage still lingered, Lily began to see them as part of her story rather than chains that held her back. She found solace in the idea that, somehow, surviving all those hardships had made her stronger. Lily also started dreaming about the future. She saved a portion of her salary for small luxuries she had never experienced before, like a good book or a plant to decorate her apartment. Each little accomplishment, no matter how small, felt like a step toward building a life she could truly call her own. One evening, while sorting through some old boxes at home, she found a photo of Emily. Her heart tightened, but for the first time in years, she didn't cry. She simply looked at her friend's face and whispered, "I still miss you, but I'm trying to live for both of us." It was a quiet afternoon at the hotel. Lily was at the front desk, organizing some paperwork, when a man walked into the lobby. He seemed to belong to another world, one Lily had only seen in magazines. Tall, with perfectly styled brown hair and a suit that appeared tailored to perfection, he carried an aura that made everyone around him take notice. Lily tried to focus on her work as the man approached. "Good afternoon. How can I help you?" she asked, keeping her tone professional, though she felt her hands tremble slightly. He smiled, and for a moment, Lily found herself at a loss for words. "Good afternoon," he replied, his voice calm and captivating. "I'm Ethan Donovan. I have a reservation for this week." As Lily checked the records, she realized her heart was beating faster than usual. There was something about the way Ethan looked at her, something that seemed to see beyond the uniform and formalities. She handed him the room key, and he thanked her, but before leaving, he paused. "I know this is a bit forward," he began, "but I'd love to have a drink with you in the lounge tonight. What do you think?" Lily froze for a moment. No one had ever done anything like that before. She hesitated, thinking about the hotel's policies and her own lack of experience with dates. But something about Ethan's sincerity made her say, "I think I could accept." That evening, she was nervous. She chose a simple yet elegant dress she had bought with her first paycheck. In the hotel lounge, Ethan was waiting at a table near the window, where the city lights sparkled like an ocean of stars. When Lily arrived, he stood up, displaying a kind of gentlemanly charm that caught her off guard. The conversation flowed with surprising ease. Ethan talked about his family, how his father had started from nothing and built a successful company, always supported by his mother, a strong and determined woman. Lily, initially shy, began sharing pieces of her own story. Though she didn't mention the orphanage or Emily, she talked about her love for books and her dream of traveling one day. Ethan seemed captivated by every word she spoke, and Lily noticed something she had never felt before. Someone saw her as a whole person, not just a pretty girl or a receptionist. When the night ended, he walked her to the hotel entrance, holding her hand a moment longer than necessary. "This was the best night I've had in a long time," he said before saying goodbye. After that evening in the hotel lounge, Ethan and Lily began meeting regularly. He surprised her with his attention to detail, remembering the little things she mentioned during their conversations. One day, for instance, he showed up with a leather bookmark, knowing how much she loved to read. "So you never lose your place in a story," he said, with a smile that seemed to brighten even the gloomiest days. Lily, however, struggled to fully accept what was happening. Part of her believed Ethan was too good to be true, that he would eventually realize she didn't belong in his world. But Ethan was persistent, not just in showing his interest, but in proving that he saw Lily as someone special, regardless of her background. Over time, Lily began to let her guard down. Her outings with Ethan became moments she eagerly looked forward to. He took her to places she had only read about in books, art galleries, restaurants with sophisticated dishes, and even a sunset boat ride. However, what touched her most was the simplicity of being by his side, the conversations in the park or the comfortable silences as they walked hand in hand. Ethan also made a point of introducing Lily to his family. Although she was initially nervous, she was warmly welcomed by the Donovans. Ethan's father, a man with an air of wisdom and determination, saw in Lily's humility and intelligence something he deeply respected. Ethan's mother, a kind and perceptive woman, praised Lily for her strength, calling it rare and admirable. These moments with the Donovan family were transformative for Lily. For the first time, she felt part of something bigger, a family that not only accepted her but valued her. More importantly, Lily began to believe that she deserved the love and happiness she was experiencing with Ethan. Ethan, for his part, seemed increasingly certain that he had found the woman of his life. He made it a point to show Lily that her past or origins didn't matter. What mattered was the future they could build together. The morning of the wedding began with a light mist that soon lifted, revealing a clear, sunny sky. Lily woke early, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nerves. The room where she was getting ready was adorned with white and lilac flowers, carefully chosen by Ethan to match the bouquet he had sent to her that morning. As the makeup artist put the finishing touches on her look, Lily gazed at her reflection in the mirror. She barely recognized the woman staring back. The wedding dress, with its intricate lace details and a delicate veil that cascaded like a river of silk, seemed to have been tailored not just for her body but for the life she had begun to build. For the first time, Lily felt whole, as if all the pain of her past had led her to this exact moment. The bridesmaids helped adjust her veil and pinned small floral accents into their hair. One of them joked that Ethan would probably cry when he saw her walking down the aisle. Lily laughed, though part of her believed it. Ethan had always been open in showing how much he loved her, and this day was the culmination of everything they had built together. At the church, the guests were already seated. The venue was stunning, with colorful stained glass windows that reflected sunlight and created an almost magical atmosphere. As the music began to play, Lily took a deep breath. The friend who would escort her down the aisle offered his arm, and together they began their walk. Each step seemed to carry a memory. The abandonment, the pain, the loneliness, all of it was present, but now it felt smaller in the face of everything she had achieved. The guests' gazes were warm, but nothing compared to the expression on Ethan's face when he saw her. He stood at the altar, his eyes glistening with tears, unable to look away. When Lily finally reached his side, the world seemed to fade away. All that mattered was the man holding her hands firmly, promising her a future filled with love and partnership. The officiant began the ceremony, but Lily barely heard the words. All she could think about was how this moment felt like a dream, a fairy tale that had somehow become real. As they exchanged vows, Lily realized her voice was trembling with emotion. Ethan smiled and squeezed her hands tighter, as if to tell her he was there to hold her through anything. When they finally exchanged rings, the church erupted in applause, but all Lily felt was peace, a feeling she had never known before. The wedding was perfect. After exchanging their vows and hearing the heartfelt words of the officiant, Lily and Ethan walked hand in hand down the aisle, now husband and wife. Outside, guests tossed flower petals, filling the air with vibrant colors and the sweet aroma of celebration. Lily's smile was radiant, an expression of genuine happiness she had never dreamed she could feel. As photographers captured the final moments, a subtle movement caught Lily's attention. At the end of the flower-lined path, a young girl, around 8 years old, appeared, clutching a small bouquet of wildflowers. Her expression was shy but determined, as if she knew exactly what she was doing. Lily tilted her head, curious, as the little girl approached. "Hi," the girl said softly. "These flowers are for you. I thought they'd make your day even more special." Lily knelt down to be at the child's level. The girl's gesture was simple, yet there was something in her eyes, a familiarity Lily couldn't explain. As she accepted the flowers, her gaze fell on something shining in the girl's hand. A silver ring with a simple but unmistakable design. Lily's heart raced. Her eyes locked onto the ring, and for a moment, the world around her seemed to freeze. A flood of memories washed over her. Afternoons with Emily at the orphanage, the day they won the school poetry contest, and how they used their prize money to buy matching rings as a symbol of their friendship. "That ring," Lily began, her voice faltering. "Where did you get it?" The girl smiled confidently, as if she had been expecting the question. "It was my mom's. She gave it to me before she left on a trip. She said it was very special to her." Lily felt the ground shift beneath her feet. She gently took the girl's small hands in hers, her heart pounding. "What's your mom's name?" she asked carefully. "Emily," the girl replied naturally. "Emily Carter." Tears filled Lily's eyes as she struggled to process the words. She could barely speak. "And where do you live?" she asked, her voice trembling as she fought to stay calm. The girl explained simply that she lived in a small town up north, but her mother was currently away on a work trip. Still stunned, Lily turned to Ethan, who stepped closer and placed a steady hand on her shoulder, offering silent support. Lily took a deep breath, summoning her strength. "I have to find her. As soon as we return from our trip, I promise I'll go." The girl smiled and nodded, placing the bouquet in Lily's hands before disappearing back into the crowd of guests. That night, in the room reserved for their first night as newlyweds, Lily couldn't sleep. She stared at the ring on her own finger, the one she had kept for so many years as her only tangible reminder of Emily. The world felt like a jumbled puzzle, and the piece that little girl had brought with her matching ring made everything spin in Lily's mind. Ethan, ever attuned to Lily's emotions, sat beside her on the bed, taking her hand in his. "Do you want to talk about it?" he asked, his voice calm and reassuring. Lily let out a deep sigh, the weight of the day's memories pressing down on her. "That ring," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "is identical to the one my best friend and I bought when we were kids at the orphanage. Emily. She disappeared when we were 14 during a trip to the woods. We searched for her for years, but we never got any answers." Ethan listened intently, not interrupting as Lily spoke about Emily, the deep bond they had shared, and the emptiness her absence had left behind. "Today, when I saw that ring on the girl's hand, it was like everything came rushing back. I know it's not a coincidence. Emily had the exact same ring. She must be alive, Ethan. I have to find her." Ethan placed a gentle hand on Lily's face, wiping away the tears that had started to fall. "Then we'll find her. As soon as we get back from our honeymoon, you'll have my full support. We'll go wherever we need to." Lily felt a mix of relief and anxiety. She knew Ethan was sincere, but the fear of raising her hopes only to discover it was all a mistake haunted her. Still, she couldn't ignore the signs she had been given. The next morning, before leaving for their honeymoon, Lily placed Emily's ring on a chain alongside her own and wore it around her neck as a talisman. The gesture symbolized her resolve to follow this thread of destiny to its conclusion. After an unforgettable honeymoon at a seaside resort, Lily and Ethan returned home, but her mind remained fixed on the promise she had made to herself. As soon as they landed, she contacted the mother of the girl who had given her the bouquet. The little girl had been clear about where she lived, and Lily was able to arrange a visit for the following weekend. The drive to the town was quiet. Ethan held the wheel while Lily sat beside him, clutching the necklace with the 2 rings. Every mile felt like it was drawing her closer to a past she had never been able to fully let go of. The address led them to a modest but welcoming home, surrounded by a small garden filled with wild but vibrant flowers. When the door opened, Lily froze. Standing before her was a tall, slender woman with blonde hair tied in a messy bun and eyes that seemed weighed down with untold stories. Lily felt the world spin. There was no doubt it was Emily. For a moment, neither of them could speak. Emily's eyes widened as she stared at Lily, and tears began streaming down both their faces. "Lily?" Emily finally murmured, her voice an echo of the past. Lily couldn't respond. She simply threw herself into her friend's arms, holding her with the force of years of longing, pain, and unanswered questions. Emily hugged her back tightly, sobbing uncontrollably. "I thought I'd never see you again," she said, her voice choked with emotion. Inside the house, seated at the kitchen table, Emily began to recount what had happened on that fateful day in the woods. She had been abducted by a man who took advantage of the chaos during the outing. Emily spent months in captivity until, in a moment of the captor's carelessness, she managed to escape. Frightened and unsure of how to return to the orphanage, she was found by a couple who took her in and helped her rebuild her life. "They were good to me," Emily explained, wiping away her tears. "But I could never bring myself to come back to look for you, Lily. It was like part of me was frozen, trapped in that day, until my daughter was born. She gave me the courage to face the past." Lily listened intently, feeling a mix of pain and relief. The emptiness she had carried for so long was beginning to be filled, though the scars remained. When Emily finished, Lily took her hand. "I never stopped thinking about you. No matter what happened, we're here now together again. And that's all that matters." After their emotional reunion, Emily invited Lily to stay at her house for a few days. During that time, the two friends delved into memories of the past, as if they needed to stitch together the years they had lost. Emily showed Lily photos of her daughter, Emma, the little girl who had appeared at Lily's wedding, and explained how Emma had become her anchor during her hardest moments. One quiet afternoon, as they sipped tea in the living room, Emily brought out an old wooden box. "I've kept this for years," she said, placing it on the table. Lily opened it carefully and found a collection of keepsakes. A small doll, a sketchbook, and, at the bottom, another ring identical to the one hanging from her necklace. Lily picked up the ring, holding it gently. "You still have it," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. Emily nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. "Even when I felt lost, it was my connection to you. It gave me hope in the darkest moments." They spent hours reminiscing about their days at the orphanage, the games, the plans for a future together. Between laughter and tears, Lily realized that, despite everything they had endured, the essence of their friendship remained untouched. On the last day of her visit, Emily suggested they go to the forest where it had all begun. Despite the emotional weight, Lily agreed, feeling it was necessary to close that chapter once and for all. When they arrived, the place seemed smaller than Lily remembered but still held the same aura of mystery. They walked to the clearing where the picnic had taken place so many years ago. Emily suddenly stopped and took Lily's hand. "For the longest time, I thought I'd never see this place again. But now I'm here with you. That means we won, Lily. We survived." Tears streamed down Lily's face. Hand in hand, they stood silently, allowing the emotions to flow. The forest, once a symbol of loss, had become a place of reconciliation. Months after reuniting with Emily, Lily felt her life had gained new meaning. The friendship that had once been brutally interrupted was now flourishing stronger than ever. Lily and Ethan traveled frequently to visit Emily and Emma, and the two families began building a new tradition of gathering together. At one of these gatherings, Ethan made a suggestion that surprised everyone: a grand dinner to celebrate the friendship between Lily and Emily. The event was meticulously planned, bringing together friends, the Donovan family, and those who had played significant roles in both their lives over the years. For Lily, it was more than a celebration. It was a confirmation that she had found a home in the hearts of those she loved. On the night of the dinner, the hall was beautifully decorated with soft lights and lilac flowers, a thoughtful touch from Ethan. Lily and Emily stepped onto an improvised stage to say a few words. "Not long ago," Lily began, her voice steady but filled with emotion, "I thought happiness was something I would never know, that my past was a scar that could never heal. But life has a way of surprising us. And today, I'm here not only with the woman who is my soul sister, but also with all of you who have shown me what love and belonging truly mean." Emily held Lily's hand and added, "When I was lost, I thought my world had ended. But the truth is, I was just waiting for the moment to find myself again. And that moment happened here, with all of you by my side." Their words were met with applause and tears. Later that evening, while everyone danced or laughed in small groups, Lily and Emily stepped aside, watching the scene from a distance. "Do you realize how lucky we are?" Emily asked, her smile radiating serenity. Lily nodded. "I feel like, finally, I'm at peace." As they made their way back, Emma ran up to them, clutching a sketchbook. "I drew the three of us together," she said, her voice bursting with the pure joy only a child could possess. The drawing showed Emily, Lily, and Emma holding hands, surrounded by a rainbow. Lily held the drawing gently, a lump forming in her throat. She looked at Emily and, with a smile, murmured, "Promise fulfilled. We finally have our family." The dinner ended with laughter, hugs, and promises of future gatherings. As Lily returned home with Ethan, she felt the weight of the past dissolve completely. She knew the scars were still there, but now they were marks of triumph, reminders of everything she had overcome.